I started this morning going to the House of Balance, which was a place where a Lama from Tibet was doing a meditation with us. And he was reminding us all that we should have peace and mindfulness in our head. And when you think of peace and mindfulness, you're not far away of looking after the planet and starting to care about energy, starting to care about climate, and looking after the fact that if we continue with our old ways, we might blow up Mother Earth sooner or later, and that we have to find alternatives. Because we all want to live happy and peaceful on this planet. And our today's topic, of course, is less spiritual than my morning session, but it goes into that direction. It goes into the direction that we have to find ways to save the planet and make money. And I think if you can combine these two things, you are really sustainable, because if you just save the planet and don't make money, you will sooner or later stop with your effort to trying to save the planet, because it's not sustainable economically. So to try to bridge that gap between being a good doer and being a profitable business, we have today lined up a very good set of speakers that will show us each how they will do it, what their approach is in this field. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all, and last but not least, introduce my fellow board member, Andreas Weckermann, who will lead us through today's session. He is one of the investors in startups, not only in sustainable management, but also in other startups and growth companies that might be profitable or hopefully are profitable. So he has quite a bit of knowledge in what's going on, and he will be leading us through our today's session. Andreas, I think the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Urs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome this morning. As Urs just mentioned, I spent 20 years in Asia and the last 2 years back in Switzerland. And for me, it's quite amazing. This morning, I left at 5 o'clock for early breakfast meetings here in Davos from Zurich. Zurich has so much snow, snowing like hell. And you come here and it's blue sky, no snow. It's the opposite of what we normally would expect, right? And that's probably realities as well we will see in the future. We have today a few very interesting companies presenting their expertise and their journeys they have been through all the challenges and the opportunities we see in green tech. And the first speaker I'd like to welcome is Raphael Fitz, who has established a very interesting company over the last few years. And more interesting as well for me to learn is that he actually started as a tax consultant, right? And a transactional manager. And through his family life, learned the importance of what is changing the world these days and how we can shape the future of this world. So the floor is yours. Raphael, please join us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Urs, for the announcement and introducing me. As said, as being a transactional lawyer and tax lawyer, I learned in the 80s, in the end of the 90s, when my second daughter was born, how polluted the world is. And then I switched, I said, we have to do something against it. And then till the end 90s, I'm into trying to change the planet, the world, and save it. That was already my opening statement, which I said, the world is on a highway to hell. Do you have a PowerPoint?
Give me a second.
Yes.
We have a technical issue.
I'm too fast, I know. I'm speaking too fast.
Give me a second. We have a technical issue. Good. Sorry.
Yeah, so the world is on a highway to hell, a downhill race, accelerating speed each and every day. Fires, flooding, hurricanes, typhoons, remember Fukushima, cold waves, like in the States right now, heat waves, landslides, droughts, are killing millions of people, directly and indirectly. The famous art piece, The Divine Comedy of the famous Italian poet Dante Alighieri, which describes the horrible 9 circles to hell, increasing pains by every circle, will be considered as a nice afternoon tea party compared to what we are moving towards. Now, we have to stop that right now, not tomorrow, not this afternoon, now, when I'm speaking. Because as announced already in the papers last day, we will not manage to achieve the climate goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's still our kept myth. It's not possible anymore. So what did we do about it? Our company is dedicated to turn waste into energy solutions since 1993. With our proprietary bacterial soft fermentation technology, we turn each and any type of organic waste into energy, into biogas. We produce biogas from, for example, households, MSW, sewage sludge, all food and beverage waste, production waste, slaughterhouse waste, straw and agricultural waste, which otherwise is burned on the fields and pollutes again, as you can see every year in India, China, and Serbia, and Europe, the fields are burning. Paper production, wood processing, anything organic, plant, or animal-based can be used as the input product for our technology. We produce in a bacterial-driven process which produces a methane-containing gas called biogas. And this biogas is replacing one-to-one natural gas. So that means we could replace the fossil resources. We did a study for the German government, where we could replace all the imported fossil gas from Russia with biogas plants within 5 to 8 years. Now, this is fossil natural gas and other fossil sources are not only triggering climate change, but they're also a problem per se for the fossil fuels, for the countries, for the exploitation. Now we see the war in Ukraine, which is about, in the end, about energy. So, especially in these days, it's not always about power. It's also about gas. Industry needs gas, not only power and electricity. You can turn the base product of biogas into bio-CNG, that's bio-compressed natural gas or biogas, into vehicles, cars, into LNG, into jet fuel, into bunker fuel, into ship fuel. So into any type of fuels which power all our traffic and transportation. With our team of scientists, chemists, biologists, physicists, the 1990s, and engineers, we have developed technologies which allow us to do things completely differently than any other market participant. Because the other markets were driven by crop-fired, crop-fueled biogas. Corn silage or other crop silage was used to produce gas. Issue food versus fuel. Now, by looking at the biochemical conversion and the methylation process, we split up the whole conversion process down into its different steps, and then looked at each process of the methylation, and then we try to enhance every single process step, find the right parameters like environment, like pressure, pH, monitoring, temperatures, and environmental applications to enhance every of the single process steps and to have in the whole chain split up a much higher output. And if you combine it all, you have a much higher efficiency. So we have revolutionized by this the biogas production and do it completely differently compared to standard solutions. Regarding technology, efficiency, versatility, input types, footprint size, profitability, and scalability, and many more items. In every item, we are different than traditional biogas. We never use food-related feedstock, only waste. We have no residual discharge anymore from the plant production. All output products are either recycled or made to product. Nothing is leaving the plant not being a marketable product to be profitable. We call that true sustainability and circularity, not having any waste to be discharged from our facilities. We clean up all the waste and produce green and sustainable energy and organic fertilizer from the respective inputs. There's no waste discharge anymore. All outcome is natural, green, and sustainable. Even when upgrading the biogas to natural gas part, the waste gas being split off, which is mainly carbon dioxide, is being reused as a product. We do it as liquid CO2 carbon dioxide or dry ice, both needed heavily in the industry. Like Coca-Cola, when we have, you see the bubbles, especially Coke is like hell when you pour it. And all this is fossil carbon dioxide. And if you look at the quantity of soft drinks or bottles produced all over the world, just as one single product, we have millions of tons of fossil carbon dioxide just to enhance the drinks. This could be changed completely to renewable carbon dioxide. And in industry, you have the applications of cleaning and others where you use dry ice, so fossil CO2 products. Coca-Cola with a nice experience this spring or this last fall after the spring when we asked, and do we have vegan CO2? Because our young generation and the younger ones, even then maybe the young guys in the room, they ask for vegan products. They don't care about brand. They say we want vegan, we want renewable, we want sustainable, we want to save footprint, we don't eat, and so on. So they say if you don't switch even to vegan, we will not sell our drinks anymore. So there's a high core target in all these beverage companies. Now, traditional biogas produces, just as a comparison, from approximately 20,000 tons of input for silage in Europe, energy power of about 1,600 households. And just to see the comparison, we use the same amount of input quantity of rice and corn straw, and we will have an outcome of 4,250 households being made from pure waste, which is otherwise burnt, disposed of, displaced somewhere, and so about almost 3 times as much output due to the scientifically split of the project. I say traditional biogas is like, you call it the fouling eggs from the 1790s in France, where they just dump something in, close it up, and natural happens, because digestion happens naturally if you add the material which are contained in the cow manure in the stomachs of the cows, the only surviving spot for the methane bacteria on the world, besides the oil and gas fields underneath the ground. And so you have to add always this type of, and that is not efficient. It's still great. You make a big pot, you stir it around, what's coming out is coming out. And so we did not care about crop and about this technology. We developed our own. So the greenhouse gas reduction of our plants through the split up steps is much higher, reducing also the carbon dioxide, which is anyway renewable by waste. But we also make products. So again, we have a negative footprint because we replace additional fossil products. So looking at our population projections for about 10 billion people on Earth in around 2050s, the fuel versus food issue becomes even more important. And 10 billion people will create more and more organic waste. That's a vicious cycle to hell. At the moment, WABIO is involved in approximately the development of more than 1,200 megawatt capacities for green fuels and planning big facilities bigger than 60 or 100 megawatt. So not small scale biogas, we can do large plants, and we can replace ordinary fossil power plants from coal, oil, or gas with the green gas from us by building big scale within the footprint of the ordinary power plants, sometimes even small. And we don't consider by that the footprints and the resources these power plants take up when they exploit the oil fields, the gas fields, the coal mines. We just have in Germany at the moment going on the clearing of Lützerath. That's a little village where the opponents of fossil energy are trying to block the exploitation of the brown coal day mining of these fields. And the police was cleaning it. And when you see these pictures on the TV, you see these vast areas of the coal mining. If anybody has seen that, he knows that's an interesting experience. So this adds to the footprint of a coal power plant, which then just does the residue and the cost. So the cost, which is always told of fossil energy, where they leave out all these other costs, and of nuclear, the cost we can imagine what has happened when we at one point find a disposal and a discharge of the nuclear waste, which is not yet sure. So the waste we need for this produced energy is always in the area around, which is covered by the energy output. So it's almost equivalent. So a very small radius, 20, 30, 40 kilometers, we can find everywhere the waste we need. We even done a research on brown coal, on lignite, and we have realized that with our technology, we even can digest lignite, bad quality lignite, which is not fully carbonized. So that is already a profitable and feasible study in our labs and in our testing facility, that we can make these brown coal fields maybe green in the near future to take that out. So with our WABIO solutions, we can act here and now. And for our acronym WABIO, we are bio. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Raphael. We'll have time afterwards for Q&A with all the speakers. So if you have any questions, just bear with me and keep them for the end. Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Valentin Moeckli-Schneider, the co-founder of Neustark AG, a fast-growing business based in Bern. Valentin is in charge of the commercial functions, as I learned, of the company as a co-CEO. Previously, he had experience at SBB, the Swiss railway company, and as well Climeworks, as I learned as well from you about. So very happy to have you here, introducing your company to us today.
Thank you, Andreas. Do you hear me well in the background if I talk like this? Yep. Great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks for having me here. So happy to introduce you to Neustark. And what we do at Neustark is storing CO2 in demolished concrete. Why do we do that? We do that as we want to contribute to the goal of net zero emissions, which eventually humanity has to achieve by latest 2050. So what does net zero actually mean? Net zero means, of course, we have to reduce emissions wherever possible through renewables, through biogas, as we just learned. But we know as of today, there will be sectors where we cannot imagine today how to get rid completely of greenhouse gases. Those sectors include agriculture, aviation, construction. So whatever we will still emit, those residual emissions, at latest by 2050, will have to be rebalanced by so-called carbon dioxide removal. So this will have to be cleaned from the atmosphere. And if you look at climate scenarios, we'll need those carbon dioxide removals at the scale of about 10 billion tons of CO2 per year. What does that mean? As of today, humanity emits about 40 billion tons of CO2 per year. So 1/4 of what you're emitting will have to be removing in the future. That's going to require a whole new industry at the size of today's global oil and gas industry. That's the size of the challenge we're facing here if we want to achieve net zero emissions and limit global warming to safe levels and avoid this disaster which colorful experience before. So that's what we're doing with developing a so-called carbon sink, a carbon dioxide removal technology in the world's largest waste stream. So the world's largest waste stream is actually demolition material, mostly consisting of old concrete, as you see here on the left. So this old concrete, those chunks, which are created from demolition activity, as of today, are mostly recycled into a recycled gravel, as you see on the right. So this is the world's largest waste stream, which you see here. It's exponentially growing. And the good news is that this very material stream has the chemical potential to permanently bind CO2, to petrify CO2. About 60 kilograms of CO2 per ton of concrete. And that's what we're developing, this potential we're turning into a reality through a whole solution and not just a technology. So we integrate in today's concrete recycling value chain, which is what you see in gray. So as of today, deconstruction chunks of concrete are collected at concrete recycling places all around the world. They're mostly crushed into a recycled gravel, and then this recycled gravel is either sometimes landfilled or in other cases reused for the production of concrete or for the construction of roads. We don't change that, we just add a couple of steps here. So we have our patented technology which we've developed at ETH Zurich, where we contact CO2 with the recycled gravel at the recycling site. That's the core technology. But then we take care of the whole value chain. So we get CO2, mostly from biogas plants. We liquefy it there, we bring it to the concrete recycler so that we can operate our plant. And then we measure exactly, batch by batch, how much CO2 we turn into stone. And we also measure how much CO2 we create in this process. So capturing the CO2, transporting it, of course, also generates CO2. And then we calculate the net benefit. And this net benefit we market as a CO2 certificate, which is at the end the product created financing this whole operation. So in reality, this looks as follows. We take the CO2 from a biogas plant. This is a more traditional biogas, what you see here. We're looking forward and also, of course, maybe to take it from WABIO in the future. We take it there where it's a waste stream 100% pure. We don't have to separate gases anymore. We just have to turn it into liquid so that we can transport it. And that's what we do here. We compress the gas, we cool it down. Then as a liquid, it gets in a container. And in this container, we bring the CO2 to the recycling site, where we basically contact it with the recycled gravel, which you see there on stockpiles in the top right. It's put in our reactors, and then we contact it with the CO2 in a specific way, in which we don't have to move the materials. It's a static process. Basically, what we can guarantee here is that we lose almost no CO2. So maximum losses of about 5%. It's very important for the economics of the process. And the second thing which we can guarantee is very good measurability of the process, which is key if at the end we go to market CO2 certificates, of course. So that you see here in the measurement. We have several measurement methods. We can just weigh the material and see how over time it gets more heavy because we turn CO2 into stone, in the pores and on the surface of this gravel. You see that here. This is under a microscope, old concrete before our process, very bulky shape of the surface. And this is after our process. I don't know if you see it in the back, but those are crystals which you see under the microscope. That's stone, limestone, CO2 turned back into limestone. Nothing, or only if we heat this up to more than 1,000 degrees, the CO2 could release again. Otherwise, we have here permanent storage for millions of years, undoing the damage we did in the past in terms of CO2 emissions. So, what's the efficiency of this process? Don't we just generate more CO2 than what we store then at the end? Clearly, no. We did a life cycle analysis together with ETH Zurich and the Paul Scherrer Institute here in Switzerland. It's published, everybody can access it. And what we see here is that we have the 93% efficiency, at least in Switzerland, with the electricity mix we have here in Switzerland. That means whilst storing 1 ton of CO2, we only generate about 70 kilograms of CO2. So a clearly positive impact. And only this net positive impact is at the end marketed as a CO2 certificate. And there, for the CO2 certificate, we are the world's first technology-based carbon sink. So there are other things like afforestation, nature-based solutions. We're the first technology-based carbon sink working under the highest standard there is for CO2 certificates, which is gold standard. So behind there is the gold standard foundation, where the Worldwide Fund, the WWF, is also heavily involved. So this gives to the buyer of the carbon dioxide removal certificate a good certainty that whatever we sell has effectively been removed from the atmosphere and is here as a natural climate benefit. So customers of those certificates include mostly international corporations, as of today from the finance, tech sectors, with an ambitious net zero target by 2050, or in case of UBS, which is a big customer of ours, they have even a 2025 net zero target, and they avoid whatever they can in terms of emissions, but they still fly around. They still have some heatings in rental buildings, which they cannot replace simply by a heat pump. So whatever they cannot avoid, they commission us to remove that from the atmosphere so that they can reach net zero, not by 2050, but by 2025 for their own emissions, scope 1 and 2. Other clients include Rodin, which is a Scandinavian private equity company, or also Microsoft, which has a net zero goal for 2030 already. So to deliver those certificates, we by now have 5 CO2 storage plants in operation for now across Switzerland, working with also big international construction or building materials companies like Holcim, for example, who are our partners handling this old concrete and storing the CO2 in it. Throughout this year, we'll grow outside of Switzerland on our growth path. So our goal is to annually store 1 million tons of CO2 by 2030, which means we have to hurry up and double our organizations, I think, every year, and we are on that path right now, and soon also enter the Asian market. So as a company, this picture is about 1 year old. Now we're 30 people. By the end of the year, probably around 60. We are a spin-off of ETH Zurich, founded by Johannes Tiefenthaler, second from the left, and myself. To further finance this growth path, we are approaching our Series A investment round this year. So if there is something of interest for you, please reach out. And so far, we're fully independent. We only have one financing round with a firm-based family here in Switzerland. Right. Thanks a lot for your attention. Looking forward to discuss with you in the Q&A session later on during lunch.
Valentin, just one question. You said we have to hurry up.
Yeah.
What is the call to action you would give to the audience today?
Okay, so depending on your background, if you're a construction company somehow involved, please talk to me. We want to store CO2 with you when your material streams. If you're in a corporate with a net zero goal, talk to us. We'd like to help you achieve net zero with our certificates. If you'd like to contribute in our Series A as an investor, I'm also very glad to talk.
Are you working with Cemex, for example? I know that Cemex has a project. Are you working with them? You know the company Cemex?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you working with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a good exchange.
You are already.
Good exchange. Yeah.
Yeah. And how is that going?
Let's discuss that afterwards. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much, Valentin. Thanks for joining us today. Our next speaker, Dr. Bernd Nielsen, right? I can just give you this one already. He's currently the managing director of ENPA's energy research focus team, right? Has extensive studies here in Switzerland, EPFL, but also abroad, University of Melbourne and Princeton University in the US, and will share us today's exciting story, what ENPA is doing here as well to facilitate it. So,
thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you about fuels that are actually either hydrogen or other sustainable fuels that I will present to you a little bit later during my slide set. Just before I start and go into the topic, I want to very quickly present ENPA a little bit. We have 3 sites in Switzerland, roughly 1,000 employees, and roughly 30 research labs. And in these research labs, we work on various topics related to sustainable materials and sustainable technologies. And obviously, one of these technologies, which is very important, is basically sustainable mobility. So there are a couple of options when we talk about sustainable mobility. We could look at or work with battery electric vehicles. We could move to hydrogen, to synthetic fuels like methane, or like power to liquid fuels, synthetic kerosene, for example. And how to actually choose the fuel for an application. And this is what I want to show a little bit here, which aspects are important to help you kind of make a decision. One important aspect is the conversion efficiency. For sure, battery electric cars have basically the highest efficiency there. We can use renewable energy directly, store it in a battery, and then have a very efficient drivetrain and electric motor. If we want to move to hydrogen, we already start losing somewhat the efficiency because we have to synthesize the hydrogen, investing energy, and then we have to turn it back into electricity in a fuel cell in the car. When you then move further to more complex organic molecules such as synthetic methane or power to liquid fuels, such as synthetic diesel or kerosene, we lose even more performance or efficiency because we add additional synthesis steps. Now, it's not as simple though, that's just one criteria. We also have 2 more criteria that we have to look at. The first one is the energy density. So how much energy can I transport with 1 kilogram or 1 liter of fuel or battery? And the other one is basically more systemic aspect. It's the flexibility. How easy is it to transport the fuel? How easy is it to integrate it into my energy system? And here, both aspects actually are exactly inverse to the conversion efficiency. So batteries can store some energy, but the energy density is actually quite limited. And also we can transport electricity, but it's very expensive over long distances. Power to liquid fuels, so kerosene or methane, synthetic methane, can be transported much easier because the energy density is also much higher. And we can store them much easier for months and seasons, actually. So we have to find kind of the trade-off between these 3 kind of, let's say, aspects to choose the option for each type of mobility. And I just quickly showed this overview here, where you can see if you start from the top, everything that you can electrify, you will probably electrify. So starting from light vehicles, passenger cars, but also in cities where you have local logistics, vans and so on, you're going to electrify if possible. Also city buses will most probably be electrified. But then if you start moving to heavy duty trucks, to long distance transport, you probably want to use a fuel that has a higher energy density. And so we have hydrogen, for example, for heavy duty trucks and for long distance buses maybe. If you move further down to synthetic methane with even higher energy density, we can even start to move vessels and shipping and go into shipping. However, if we look again at hydrogen and synthetic methane, most probably there will be no business case for passenger vehicles, just because it's cheaper and more efficient to go to battery electric cars. So the business case will be very challenging for these applications here, hydrogen and passenger cars. The same is actually for, or even more extreme for power to liquid fuels. If we have synthetic liquid fuels with a very high power density, we can mostly use them probably in aviation, which is very tough to decarbonize, and in shipping, and maybe also in some long distance heavy duty transport. However, in passenger transport, most probably it's going to be for specific, maybe legacy vehicles or other niche markets, just because it's going to be too expensive and it's too energy intensive to synthesize all this power to fuel liquids or power to liquid fuels for passenger cars. So if you look at this overview, we already see it's kind of complex, right? And this is why at ENPA we established the MOVE demonstrator. So it's a demonstrator for the future sustainable mobility. And here we work together with various companies on all these various aspects. So we, for example, perform real-world fuel testing, so fuel consumption testing. We did field studies with biogas vehicles. We look at various aspects of hydrogen mobility. So not only the cars, but also actually we have an electrolyzer, how to compress the gas. It's not so easy. You have to go to 700 bar, and it's actually quite challenging. How to store it, how to operate actually a refueling station. It's also challenging because you dissipate a lot of heat, so you have to get rid of the heat actually. Then we look at battery electric cars and how to combine them with stationary batteries. And also we have various projects with other power-to-X liquid fuels and gaseous fuels such as synthetic methane. And here, for example, we started, Kleinbergs was already mentioned, right? We bought the Kleinberg system that we're going to use now and installed now at Move to collect CO2 from the atmosphere and combine it with a methanation system that will produce synthetic methane. And we actually also include here a specific technology that we developed at EMPA, which gives higher purity and performance than traditional systems. So we actually have a huge range of activities here. Because I only have limited time, I want to pick just very few aspects and talk about some of the projects. And first I want to move to, or kind of talk about hydrogen. So hydrogen has various colors. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the color scale of hydrogen, but traditionally we talk about gray hydrogen. So that's hydrogen that is produced from fossil fuels. And so there's methane, natural gas, coal, and it releases, it's cheap, it's available, it's there, large scale, but it releases a lot of CO2. So to be more sustainable, there is the tendency to say, okay, we can just capture the CO2 before it's released to the atmosphere, and we can stick to the same technology. And that's a highly controversial discussion at the moment, actually. So some are very keen and in favor of that approach. Some are highly skeptical and say, okay, maybe you cannot even capture the largest part of the CO2 for various reasons. So the question is, can we actually just retrofit our existing technology and become sustainable? Or do we have to go to different approaches? I think the discussion is still ongoing and I cannot give an answer, but it's certainly going to be very interesting discussions. One other contender is green hydrogen. And here we start completely differently. We use water and renewable energy, electricity from photovoltaics, hydropower, or from winds. And then we use an electrolyzer to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And there we can reach very low greenhouse gas emissions. However, we need a lot of energy, a lot of renewable energy. And also it's quite expensive at this point also. So that's clearly a downside. On the other hand, we can reach very clean and pure hydrogen. So that's an advantage. And because all these technologies have their own downsides, at EMPA we look also at a slightly less known color of hydrogen. And that's turquoise hydrogen, which is actually starting from methane. That could be natural gas, could be biogas, could also be synthetic methane in the future. And instead of kind of just transforming it in a traditional way and releasing CO2, we heat it up actually in an atmosphere that does not contain oxygen. And by this, we don't burn it, but we split the methane molecule into solid carbon and hydrogen. And here, that's the advantage actually, that we will have a powder or like a solid material instead of a gas like CO2. So we can handle it much more easily. And also, we can use it as a resource. We can use it for buildings, for example. Of course, we have to make sure that it doesn't enter again the atmosphere. So there are some questions to be answered, but it's the first time basically that we have a resource out of a waste stream. And we heard this several times. It's really important to consider the waste streams also as resources and make the best out of it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business case. And at EMPA, we're looking very actively how to integrate the solids carbon into, for example, concrete and so on, to really use it in construction. The downside here is it's still not a very developed technology. It's a prototype or demonstration level. And also at the moment, it's tough to make very high purity hydrogen. So for mobility, it's still challenging. And also it's tough to say how kind of beneficial and how good this technology actually works. And this is why, together with industrial partners, we plan to establish demonstration plants for pyrolysis And this is going to happen in Zug, so in central Switzerland, for an application that's less demanding in terms of purity. And that's actually a high temperature industrial process. And we'll see by this, hopefully, learn more about it, how it works, which parameters are important, and actually how reliable this technology is. The second project that I just very quickly want to introduce, and where we as EMPA are not directly involved, is the introduction of hydrogen logistics ecosystem in Switzerland for heavy-duty trucks. And here it's a consortium called Hydrospider, together with Hyundai Motors, and they are producing green hydrogen in Switzerland at hydrodams. They are transporting it. They are operating or partnering with hydrogen fueling stations and with partners from logistics and the retail sector to run roughly 50 trucks, hydrogen fuel trucks at the moment in Switzerland. And it's, I think, a very interesting example of how to establish a completely new ecosystem around a new sustainable technology. And that's exactly also what's needed, right? A single company will not be able to pull that basically through. I just very quickly want to switch gears to a completely different application, and these are aviation fuels. We already heard it's very tough to replace aviation fuels. First, it's because we need very high energy densities. And the other reason is because the lifetime of an airplane is typically 25 to 30 years. So if you want to be fast enough, we have to already make the current fleet of airplanes more sustainable. We have to operate them in a more sustainable way without kind of having to change completely or retrofit them completely. And this is why we need drop-in fuels. So drop-in fuels are basically replacements, one-to-one replacements for kerosene. And these are power-to-liquid synthetic fuels like synthetic kerosene. What's also interesting is that the European Union has a very strong kind of roadmap for blending ratios. So blending quotas that are mandatory or plans to be mandatory the next years. They start with biofuels, but obviously one issue is that we're going to need a lot. So biofuels will be important and will contribute to the solution, but there will be additional synthetic fuels, at least that's my opinion. And so there is a quota specific for non-biofuels, synthetic non-biofuels in 2030. It's a small percentage, but it will increase to roughly 30% in 2050. So there will be a market in Europe for that if the legislation goes through as planned. Challenges, as always, it's way too expensive. Factor of 10 these days. Hopefully, with the normal or a good CO2 tax of $100 to $200 per ton, we reach price or kind of a good pricing, maybe somewhere in the 40s or 50s. So it's a long-term project, but we have to start now because the investment takes a lot of time. And also what's clear is that there's a lot of research questions that open if you start from CO2 and non-biologic sources. Because if you start from fossil sources or biosources, there are plenty of solutions out there. There is a HEFA fuel and so on. But starting from CO2, there is still open questions. And this is why EMPA and the Pasteur Institute have a common project to look at alternative synthesis routes. One is on methanol and one is on ethylene. So two large volume basic chemicals that can be either used as such or then synthesized further to aviation. And with this, I want to ask a last question. So I talked a lot about different flavors, basically, of hydrogen and so on. But what actually is clear that we're going to use a lot of energy, and it has to be renewable energy. It cannot be met by coal or other sources if you want to avoid CO2 emissions, right? So where does it come from? We can look at the global map here, and that's a map of the wind and solar resources available. Unfortunately, here in Switzerland, it's maybe not the best. It's rather bluish, so bad, poor. So we will have to import synthetic fuels in the future. The same is true for Central Europe as a whole. However, there's regions like Southern America, Northern Africa, Australia, but also Central Asia, where there's maybe very good resources. Obviously, some are challenging to reach, so we have to make sure the logistic works. And so what I want to say is basically that if you look at this map, and if you use a study from Fraunhofer in Germany, which really looked at all these aspects, energy availability, but also ecosystems, logistics, investment security, we can estimate how much fossil fuels we could replace with synthetic fuels. And we get actually to a number that is somewhere in the range of full replacement. Certainly, we cannot accommodate a large growth in demand as is expected by the growth of economies globally and the population globally. So we have to make sure to use it wisely and to have a very good use of these synthetic fuels. But we're not going to have an energy problem in the long run. We're going to have a CO2 problem, or we already have a CO2 problem, but we're not going to have an energy problem if we manage to invest sufficiently to actually have this production and if we use it wisely. And that's basically one of the key messages. So to summarize, sustainable mobility is more than just electromobility or more than just hydrogen. It's actually a full range and a mixture, a good mixture actually, of all these individual fuels and drivetrains. We have to make sure that we optimize not only the local efficiency, but actually the systemic efficiency. How to best implement these fuels into the system and how to make sure that actually by using these fuels, we can implement more and more renewable energy generation in our systems. That's going to be very, very challenging. For some types of mobility, we need drop-in fuels, for example, aviation, where we really need to make sure that the current fleet can be operated in a more sustainable way. And we need enormous capacities of renewable electricity generation. There is enough energy if you use it wisely. And so I'm optimistic, but it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of investments. And yeah, it's going to be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Björn. That was a very interesting presentation. I learned a lot personally. We learned about cars, aviation, heavy trucks as well, right? And particularly for me, interesting were the colors of hydrogen you explained to. We'll continue our discussion afterwards. Our next speaker here is Madam Martin Graziano. Please join me here.
Well, thank you very much.
Martin holds a Master in Law originally, right? Joined then various IT companies, Accenture, British Telecom, and is now with Axpo heading the transformation and innovation team, right? So very happy to have you here this morning.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, actually. So I come from a very traditional organization, and we have a challenge to provide renewable energy to a third of the Swiss population. Actually, we are an international company, so we do a lot of activities outside as well. We have a trading hub in Singapore too. And what I'm going to talk is how we are actually contributing to a sustainable future as Axpo, as a holding. So, as I said, we have a long history of kind of producing energy, but what we set out a couple of years ago is actually we want to be able to have a sustainable future by providing innovative energy solutions. Sounds great. It's one of those statements those companies are kind of blaring out a lot, but we actually have a big ambition behind that as well. So we set our ambition for 2030 to actually grow the international renewable production. So we want to invest in 10 gigawatt additional development in solar and 3.5 gigawatt in wind. So that's a big thing to achieve. Then we want to actually, on top of that, in the trading and customer business, enable additional so-called power purchase agreements that is helping the financing of additional new renewable energy resources as well. And then obviously as a Swiss company, and we're very proud of that as well with our roots, we want to enable the transition in Switzerland as well to a more renewable, sustainable future. Well, what am I going to talk? It's not all about kind of statements. I want to give you a bit of an overview of projects we've done and what we've learned of it. What you see here is a picture of Lind-Limmen pump storage. That's about 65 kilometers from here. If you go straight through the mountains, and it's in the middle of Switzerland. The location is in the canton of Davos. And here, we planned that project and we constructed it over 10 years. So it's one in a lifetime, actually, for a lot of us, such a construction. It started in 2009. It was completed in 2017. So the location on the top, you see the Limensee lake, it's called, that's the new reservoir. Before that was a lake in the mountains, beautiful for going hiking. But now there is a big dam, it's the longest one that has ever been constructed. It's almost, or it's more than a kilometer longitude. And down in the other lake, it's the Limensee. So what we've done, actually, we constructed in the mountains, so now you don't see anything, but in there are all the technologies. So there's the cavern with the transformer, the 4 turbines where they pump and obviously turbine the water. That was, when you went there to the construction about 5 years, you could still see all the cable cars. It was actually quite impressive. Also, the cavern was a huge kind of space. We took all the construction material from the cavern, put it to the top of the Limmen lake and built the dam. So that's in a way from the circular economy. We're trying to reuse the material that is actually already there. What's the capacity now? The pump storage from the Moeckli-Schneider down to the Limensee is 1,000 megawatt. It's in here indicated that it's more because we actually also can let down the water from the Limensee to the Tierfeld, to the valley. The power production, 2,000 gigawatt per hour to 3,000 gigawatt per hour. The other thing is what we are quite proud of is that we had about 3,000 employees working on that project. We had a lot of partners as well. So it was with GE, Alstom, with the National Conservation region as well, with the actual government. Because what's important with those projects is that we do it together. In the end, we have to be pragmatic. We always kind of invading the nature in a way with such project, but we want to make sure we have at the end a good solution that helps everyone. So it's really quite one of our really nice projects to talk about. The next one, again, that's more pioneered in the solar area. After the construction on the hydro side was finished, people actually said, well, why don't we do alpine solar? That was 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the planning started. Then it wasn't economically viable, I must say, at the beginning when we looked at this project. However, we found good partners here in Switzerland. They took actually the energy for the next 20 years. So that made it possible to run such a project as well. That's again, you see the nice power dam where the panels have been located. Because it was a pioneer project, we didn't really know how this is going to work. We installed the panels and looked there last winter, the first time with snow, the actual snow, because of the radiation of the panels on the top, slided down to the bottom and it got icy. So we couldn't produce anything anymore. So we had to kind of adjust all those panels. And those are the things you just learn when you do such an installation. Beforehand, it's all on paper, it sounds good. But what it really gave us is that experience. And we're now looking into doing more such projects. Now the government just in Switzerland actually accept or released the statement that we can go faster with such an infrastructure project is really important. It's in comparison, you see some numbers here as well. We might go into them. The last one, and that's something actually comes out of my department as well with all our employees, the first digital hydro plant. Obviously, you all know there are new technologies going about when we want to use them efficiently. Because again, they help us to longer and efficiently run our plants. And we started 3-4 years ago with people working on the original Moeckli-Schneider projects to experiment with technologies. What you see here is a drone. It's flying in a dam. It's not on the Moeckli-Schneider dam. And we use technology from the filming industry actually to position the camera to know where it is. To kind of, instead of people walking along those dams, taking all the information and see that everything is secure, we now let the drone run into it. And it basically, besides that, started to digitalize all our processes, people walking around. We use the drones to fly also to check all the water intakes for the power plants. And then the robotics as well, data kind of analytics. Obviously, we measure everything. We have so-called acoustic ears. they look at the turbines, how they rotate, and if there is any abbreviation, so you can actually faster check if there's something to change as well. Really a fast kind of fly through different projects here we're doing at Axpo. From my perspective, what's going to be very important to drive this forward and become more sustainable and circular economy are employees. I mean, they're bringing the new ideas. So we've heard this morning already from other ideas from Empower what they are all doing, and we see that as well at Axpo. It is partnerships. There is no way anyone has a solution. So we need to work together. We need to be pragmatic about it. And the last one for a holding like us to actually invest in such projects is the regulatory framework. That was it. Thank you very much.
Robert, Martin, maybe just one question for you. It's quite amazing that such a company like yours can do this kind of innovative approaches, right? What is the decision base for you to start with, like the lemon sales, or to come up with this kind of projects?
It depends, I guess. I mean, normally it's an economical valuation what makes sense, and we also predict what are we requiring with regards to the energy transition, what we need as a company, and then it's the business case, and it has to be economically viable as well. But it's the Alpine power, solar power was really wanted to try something new because we believe in that.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Well, we're moving from Switzerland now more to Asia, right? And very happy to have with us today Trisha Weber, who's joining us here, and is presenting us a very interesting project based in Vietnam, where we definitely can learn here from Europe as well. So, the floor is yours, Trisha.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good day to all. It's really a pleasure to be here today and to be able to speak here. And thank you to the Swiss Indian Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity. And the motto of this year's forum is cooperation in a fragmented world. And what I realize also is we need cooperations. We have heard it before, to make a more sustainable future and to make more sustainable projects. And for me, I'm coming from the south of Germany. I came here today, I saw the snow, I saw this amazing winter weather, and I thought, okay, we have to keep the winter. We need more future-oriented projects, and yeah, to solve this really, really beautiful planet. I'm really always very amazed when I see the snow. Yeah, maybe I should move to the south, but yeah, I'm born and raised in the north, so it's always difficult. But let me talk today about our project. We will produce the first green carbon neutral stainless steel in Vietnam. And yeah, let's talk about the situation. What is the situation in the world of stainless steel, about sustainable and renewable energies? There's increasing demand for stainless steel in the world. And at the same time, stainless steel is very environmentally polluting. So we have to shift this situation into a more green. We have to shift it into a more green situation. We have to look for new solutions. And yeah, at the same time, we have a problem with diversification. Or don't call it a problem, but there is no diversification, or not enough diversification in the moment. So we need reliable supply chains, because if we want to increase the renewable energies in the world, we need stainless steel. For solar panels, for everything, we need stainless steel. And of course, there's a growing demand for renewable energy, so this all connects to each other. We will be the first and only producer of stainless steel in Vietnam, and therefore we can give the domestic market of Vietnam the green stainless steel, but it's also very important because then they are not so, they don't depend on the supply chains, and whenever they will become more independent. Also, what is another problem we are all challenging is the problem of plastic, especially the plastic in the oceans. Vietnam, for example, last year 700,000 tons of plastic leaked into the oceans. So these are the situation we are working in. These are the challenges we are addressing. With our project, we want to address all these challenges and provide a solution for it. We will produce the first green stainless steel in the world. And what I said before, also be the first and only producer of stainless steel in Vietnam. What is the problem with the green stainless steel? Why is not everybody doing it? I think the main challenge, the bottleneck, is always the melting process in stainless steel, because there's a huge and high demand for electricity in this moment. We will use a plastic and the waste to plastic energy concept, a patented concept from Germany, to generate this huge amount of electricity and for the peak consumption. At the same time, with this energy concept, we address the problem of the plastic in the ocean, but also the waste plastic in Vietnam and in Southeast Asia. But everywhere else in the world, we all have a problem with plastic and we all have a problem with waste. Our production capacity will be 1 million tons per year. So we have more than the domestic market needs. So of course, our green stainless steel is also made to be exported to Europe or everywhere else in the world. Yeah, it's a very huge project, because we are not only investing into a stainless steel mill, and to produce stainless steel, but we are also investing in our own energy concept and in our own energy plants. So the total capex is calculated with $1.5 billion. And what I heard before, everybody is also looking for CO2 certificates, and we also identify it as a good second stream of revenue. In our first calculations, we will have around 800,000 CO2 certificates per year. But with increasing the production, of course, also this number could increase. We have already sold a huge amount of our stainless steel through purchase and sales agreement to customers from Vietnam. And this is how our project is looking. Now let's have a more detailed look into our energy concept, because I think this is the most interesting part, and what makes it different to other projects, to other stainless steel projects. It is a thermal. I have to look at my papers not to make something wrong. It is a catalytic degassing technology patented in Germany. And this could be the solution for the peak energy in the melting process, because it's available 24 hours, 7 days. And you always have the problem in the melting process if you rely on solar or wind energy. It always depends, is the sun shining, is the sun not shining, and you cannot build a stainless steel mill out of this energy. So at the same time, we have a unique solution for 100% recycling of chlorine and solid plastic waste from the ocean. That is a side topic and the main target we are addressing. And how is this procedure working, and why it is so special? And this catalytic degassing technology is the only process that can catalytically separate chemical pollutants and heavy metals, such as bromine, chlorine, and fluoride, for example. The pollutants form a permanent bond with the carbon. I always have to write it, because my engineer is always writing it down and says, you have to say it correctly, don't do something wrong. So the process is no incineration, it is no pyrolysis, it is no slag, no ash coming out of it, and no release of other environmentally toxic pollutants, such as dioxins or furans. And the separation of inorganic substances is a unique selling point for this technology. Of course, the output is green energy, what is important for us, because we need energy for stainless steel for the melting process, but there's also other outputs who could be generated depending on the customers and who need it. And with waste to energy, you can always generate CO2 certificates. What I said before, what is an important stream of revenue for us. And yeah, what we can see also on the market, there's a really growing market for CO2 certificates. And yeah, I just make it for small to show how the demand is growing. And of course, with the growing demand, also the prices will grow. There are forecasts to say it will grow up to around $100 per ton. And today the prices, I think, are around $25 per ton. So it is a really interesting market. You can also invest in, but we also see opportunities for our next, for our next investment round, for our next funding round. For me, it was a very interesting example about Tesla because I didn't know it before, that they are also rely so much on carbon credits to be profitable. And yeah, I think it just shows it's a very good example that you really have to identify the opportunities of your business, and you really have to see what is possible. For us, of course, stainless steel, green stainless steel, the first green stainless steel it's a very good product. But as a byproduct, this CO2 certificates is really interesting for us. And plus, that the Vietnamese government and the talks we already have, of course, they are very interested in the idea of using plastic, and especially plastic from the oceans, to generate the energy. Because, yeah, especially Southeast Asia has a huge problem with marine litter. Yeah, what are the options to work with us? Of course, as a company, what I said before, we already sold through purchase and sales agreement. We sold a huge amount of our stainless steel. Now we are in conversations with a company from Europe, because if you want to be carbon free and you use stainless steel, of course you need green stainless steel, or otherwise you have to buy carbon credits to balance your sheet. And if you want to become an offset compensation partner, it is also possible. And in the next funding round, we offer the first purchase option of CO2 credit points for the prices of today as an investment opportunity. Yeah, this was just a small introduction of what we are doing. I hope you can check later, or if you want to get in touch, feel free. I would like it. Yes, if you need some contact information, feel free to reach out every time.
Thank you very much, Grisha. Thanks. There are a few investors here in the room. Maybe they will reach out to you as well, and you can have this interaction. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good. Our next guest, Mr. Giasuddin Khan, needs very little introduction, I would say, here with us at the table. Yes, he has been a regular guest here in Davos, obviously, and has been I think the 4th president and CEO, right, of the Engro Group in Pakistan. Very instrumental to transform the group from a cultural, from a commercial, strategic, and especially international growth perspective. So we are very honored to have you here again today. It's a great pleasure to learn as well on your latest stories you have from your exciting business. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all ladies and gentlemen here. It's a pleasure to be back here again today. Wonderful session by my colleagues. It's been a tremendous learning experience. I'll just start off by giving you a very quick background of our company. Engro Corporation is a diversified conglomerate. We operate in energy and infrastructure, telecommunication towers, petrochemicals, food and agriculture, and now technology as our 5th vertical. We are predominantly a family-owned business. Our chairman of our group is right there, Mr. Hussain Daud, and his wife, Mrs. Kulsoom Daud. They've been the founding members, I believe, chairman of as far as Pakistan is concerned, at WEF, and have been coming here for a little over 30 years. What I want to talk about today is a renewable project that we're developing. And since I know that I'm between lunch and all of you guys, so I'm going to come straight to the point
rather than going into a lot of unnecessary details. And I want to pick up on what you said earlier, or that, and what I want to show over here, leading from what you said in your opening remarks, that renewable energy projects are not just good for the planet, they're good for investors, they're good for customers, they're good for governments. And that's what we're trying to do here. And when I take you through some of the details of the project that we're developing, which is a 400 megawatt wind and solar hybrid project, I'll pick upon those notes which actually show how this is great for all the stakeholders concerned. So just to give you a little bit about Pakistan, tremendous potential when it comes to renewable energy. Roughly about 350 odd gigawatts of wind power, about 3,900 gigawatts of solar power potential. If we were to utilize the potential properly, then by the year 2050, we could actually, whatever about 100 odd gigawatts, which is the projected energy requirement of the country, it can be met by renewable resources. The unfortunate part in all of this is that we've been only 5% of the total energy requirements in the country currently are being met through renewable fuels. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area. The project that we're looking to develop, as I said earlier, is in the wind corridor of Pakistan, southern province of Pakistan. It's a 400. Overall, we plan to expand it to about 1 gigawatts. The first phase of it is about 400 megawatts. And I want to take some time here to really get into why it's good for all stakeholders. Now, if you look at Pakistan's economy right now, the biggest challenge that we are facing, like a lot of other countries, is on the foreign exchange side. So our imports always creep up on us, and since our exports haven't kept pace with imports, we end up going into forex crisis, and roughly about 23% of the total imports of the country are imported fuels. So hence, for the government to have, for the country to have local renewable sources utilized, whether it's on the hydro side, whether it's solar or wind, it's vitally important for us economically. Unfortunately, by being dependent on imported fuels and being vulnerable to what is happening around us in the world, the energy costs have also crept up. So if I look at it from a customer standpoint, and the fact that we are designing this project in a way where we're sending electricity directly to end customers, bypassing the national grid, which is how our the overall power sector is structured. So we will be able to provide more cost-effective power to our customers. A lot of those customers are also focusing on export markets and now have requirements on them in terms of the various targets that their potential customers are giving from around the world, textile being one of them. So it not only achieves the goal of cheap fuel, cost-effective power, but also coming from a renewable source, which helps them with their customer base, which happen to be in a lot of European and North American countries. Clearly, for us as an investor, this is a viable project, and we are a commercial organization. We have our own goals as far as returns are concerned. So again, this is a project which is allowing us that opportunity to make a viable return while achieving the sustainability and environmental goals. So it's good for the country, it's good for our customers, it's good for us as investors, and of course it is good for the planet. So overall, I think that's so rather than going into a lot of detail, those are the main messages that I want to give as far as this project is concerned. I also happen to be representing the Overseas Investor Chamber of Commerce. I'm president of that organization in Pakistan till February. That is a combination of, it includes about 200 odd multinational companies that have invested in Pakistan. And here is a little bit of a profile about how foreign investors have fared in Pakistan in terms of their investments. And if you look at the return profile of a lot of countries who are, or companies who have been based in Pakistan for the last many decades, they've been enjoying very healthy returns and have taken the benefit of the 220 million population that we have that's continues to grow. So again, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and it was wonderful being here again, and look forward to a more involved relationship with the Swiss Asian Chamber and welcoming you to our country sooner. Thank you.
One question I would have to you. You're building up an amazing company here, and obviously a huge transformation now as well in the last few years. What's your vision? What are you envisioning over the next 10 years you want to achieve with this company? How you want to bring this forward? Maybe you share this with the group here.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we have a 50-year history of operating in Pakistan. So if I just take you a little bit back in history, and it was Esso, which was an American company, which discovered gas in Pakistan and set up a fertilizer company. Esso then became Exxon. Exxon then decided to exit from its fertilizer businesses globally, and that's when the management of the company bought the shares, and that's how Engro was born in 1991. Now, since then, the company has grown from being a small fertilizer company to a diversified conglomerate, focusing on the Pakistani market and some of the challenges that the economy was facing, and Engro was always there at the forefront of addressing those challenges, whether it's on the food security front or the energy security. What we realized, and over the last few years, or I would say a decade or so, that we got the wherewithal to play at a global stage now. So to answer your question, how are we looking at ourselves over the next 10 years? We want to be selling a substantial part of our products and services to the world, and with presence in multiple geographies. So we've already started with a trading outfit in Dubai, and are in discussions with many of our existing and potential partners for setting up business operations around the world. So for us, the big theme is to now look outwards and be more of a regional and a global player.
Well, I think Davos will be a great platform for us. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to open the floor afterwards for a Q&A with everyone. Maybe beforehand, a question to all of you is more on the innovation part, right? How do you really cultivate the innovation within the organization? And how do you bring the people along those lines? I would be happy to hear from all of you a bit of that. Maybe we start with the startup, right, here amongst the group.
Sure, great question. Maybe our challenge is opposite. We're not an established corporation where we have to push for innovation. The people who join us, they're looking for innovation, to develop things, to be creative. And it's interesting. So we just, I would say, switched from the startup phase. We've reached a product market fit, and now we're going into growth phase. So innovation is still hugely important for us. Obviously, we're very innovative staff, but innovation is also making it to the market and to the impact, not just being creative. So for us, I would say innovation right now means setting clear goals and just focus on delivering each and every day and week, push the people in that direction to really deliver, because we have to speed up, and only if we bring those brilliant concepts and ideas to the ground, we get innovative, because innovative means then also selling and having it.
Yeah, for us, it's a very relevant question, because we've been involved in very conventional businesses, right? So fertilizer manufacturing, thermal power, petrochemicals, and I think it works both ways, where decision makers, whether we're sitting on boards or senior management, working as an industrial conglomerate, your sort of capacity to accept failures and experiment too much, you're not programmed that way, right? It's very precise, and the appetite for risk is rather limited. So I think that's the change that is required, that we have made, is to be open to new ideas, open more to failing, right? Because that's inevitable whenever you're trying to transform the business. And I think from the bottom, 74% of our workforces are now millennials, and so encourage them to give new ideas and be and have the sort of heart and the gut and the mind to invest in those ideas. So innovation is very important for us, considering what we're looking to do in terms of transforming some of our existing businesses, but the new businesses that we also want to enter. But for a classic industrial conglomerate, it remains a challenge. It's easy to talk about, very hard to implement.
Yeah, coming from a biotechnology background, we sometimes have the issue that we have to cool down the people putting innovation, because when you build a project, then they can have a better solution here, better solution there. I said, can we finish this project, do the next one, not change the running project. So as we took over in the 90s, a set of engineers from the former GDR, German Democratic Republic, which collapsed in 1991, and took over a lot of talent out of these what we call Kombinate, Forschungs- und Wissenschaftskombinat, that's research and development company. There were a number of physicists, of engineers, of chemists, which were already involved in bacterial research and in waste to energy, in converting different types of waste to different types of energy. We took that over and started on that. So that's the basis of ours. The tank builders, making a big vessel, throwing something in, and looking where they go, just sell it marketing-wise. We developed R&D. For a long time, we did not build plants. This we started only in the 2000s, beside 3-4 pilot plants or demonstration plants in the 90s. And so we came from R&D. That's the core nature of it. Everybody thinking about a solution, all these new engineers, like they come to our head who of technology who is still there. He inspires them to think about new solutions to get every step better and to a digital process. Indeed, every plant contains some new developments in some certain part and improvements. So that's part of the core, because natural process can be refined everywhere. And even if you have advanced now the 10th generation of type of plant on ours, there will be 11s better, 1 and 12, but always can be better. You always can improve. But that is the challenge. Always look at the better side.
So we obviously come from a history as well, building and delivering, and we had a big challenge on that we've done over the last few years. We invested a lot in the development of the people, so we gave a lot of training. We built up some so-called communities where we can exchange about ideas across the company. So like the trading business gives ideas that they're doing and using new technologies with the people out of the hydro. We ran innovation campaigns. So we actively asked our people to bring in their innovation ideas. We financed them. We have put in the governance as well with our board. So every 3 months, people can come and pitch their ideas. So there's been a lot of effort, and I actually now see the kind of growing cloud coming along. So I think innovations is crucial to survive in today's society. I mean, things are changing so quickly, and every company needs to evolve as well. And I think if you're coming from a traditional business, it takes a little bit longer, but it's kind of great to see as well. And with new employees, the millennials, I mean, they really help to push that forward.
So for us, it's maybe a bit different than for all the others in the panel, because at EMPA we're a research institute, right? So we rather have the risk of losing contact, let's say, to the reality of the business world, right? So very often academic researchers tend to present their great ideas, but they don't really listen to them, let's say, the industry partners. And often they want to push their ideas through, even though maybe it doesn't make any sense. And I guess what we learn and what we try to do is to really get into exchange with the industry, with the partners, and also with investors to see, okay, what's their issues, to listen actually then, and not just to push our ideas through. And this is why you also have to move platform. It's very important.
Yeah, for us it's also maybe a bit different because we are founded to do green stainless steel, so there's no question about this. But it's maybe interesting how when we talk to other people, like when we first traveled to Vietnam to meet members of the Vietnamese government, also meet members from the provinces, we really saw that we have to convince them that they need green stainless steel instead of stainless steel. And it was completely opposite. We were running into open arms. I thought about this several times, and I think maybe because they are much closer to, they really can see and feel what the change of the environment is already causing them. They have these beaches, they have areas where they really have trouble with the change of the nature, and I think that is maybe one reason why they are so into green projects. So it was very easy to convince them. At the same time, when we worked together with large steel and stainless steel mill producer from Germany, it is a bit different. And of course, also when we talk to investors and we do the calculation with green energy, and we do it without the investment into green energy, the numbers change. And sometimes you really have to do some talks to convince people that it is a good investment into the future. But because what I really think is that there will come a time, I don't know if it's 5 years or 10 years, that it will really become difficult to import stainless steel in Europe, normal stainless steel in Europe. We have to be green. And that is our argument if we talk to investors or we talk to partners.
Very good, thank you very much. Questions, Urs?
Thank you very much. When you start a new business, you can either start it with an incredible innovative idea that you patent, or you can do things much better than anyone else in a traditional industry. And when you look at changing the world and saving the planet, and you have a fantastic innovative idea and you patent it, we have here two people, like from Neustark and I think from WABIO, who have a patented idea and they do it. But how do you feel about me or someone else, a priest or someone saying, you should open up your patented idea so that other people can use that idea as well and save the planet? And have you encountered that? Because it is happening in the pharmaceutical industry. And how do the others look at that? For example, Engro, I see they do things that have been done elsewhere in the world, but they want to do it better. They will do it more efficiently, or they will do it in the Pakistani way. How do you see it in maybe shifting into the innovative world and just patent a process and secretly do something better? How do you deal with that complexity? If I come and say, for example, I will be Bangladesh and I'll need that technology that you have to capture CO2, and I say, I will just use it. I will not pay any patent fees or license fees. I will just use it because I want to save the planet too.
Who likes to start?
Thanks a lot for a question which has cost me many hours of sleep, I think, as I was thinking about it. And I don't have a clear answer, but there are some things around it which I know. So, cannot be that a patent in any way hinders the uptake, the market uptake of such a solution. That's what I know, and that's what I think could measure us up to, and I think I should handle a patent in such a way. The other thing which I also know is that mostly for a very young company, in the beginning it's two people with an idea, and if you want to get this off the ground, a patent application is an innovation driver, because it gives you some protection where an investor would see, okay, there's a certain protection. I bet my money on this so that this can start to grow. Whereas if it would be two guys with an idea, you can be sure that there's, at this moment of time, big industrial players which are better equipped to execute this idea. So I think it's a question of how to deal with it, in which phase of development, and you opened up with mindfulness. So it's a concept to be used in a mindful way.
Maybe I can answer that a little bit. So firstly, let's look what is the reason for a patent. I mean, they've developed over many years maybe technologies which apply and which have a good result. Now, if you ask all the Microsofts, the Apples, the Oracles, or whatever has that, to my mind, nobody has opened up its patents for the market. One reason is not preventing mankind to take advantage of that, because if, to speak for our case, if you build a plant somewhere, or if with our technology a plant is built somewhere, the investment cost is, I don't know, between 20 and 150 million. If the patent cost, we're not doing that game. I mean, it is not of essence whether this country, everybody can build one, and you can buy the license for it. So the commercial success will not be significantly higher if you save just the license cost on 150 million investment. So I mean, if it was a patent which protected, let's say, the poor from clearing water, and it is of no cost because they simply could implement that, yes, that's a matter of survival or a matter of mankind and everything. But a patent where the people have to invest anyway a huge amount of money to set up something, one part of that, and if the profitability there is extremely profitable, we don't need to make the people even more profitable on a very high yield anyway, just by saving them the patent cost. So for us, that makes no sense, because the patent is the friction of the total investment cost. And so they would make more money, but if the profitability is in 2 or 3 years payback, you know, that is good enough. I think then you're valid to take some of the money as a patent and as your 20, 30 years development work, which you've invested in there, especially as a small company, and it has not do it. So yes, it can be open to everybody, but if they have to invest anyway, I think the fair share for the patent developer and bringing up technology is quite reasonable.
We have a question there in the back, please.
My question is for the Engro representative here. You spoke about renewable energy projects, which are very capital intensive projects. Considering the economic and political instability in Pakistan, what motivates you in investing in this domain?
It's a nice task. Yeah, running for them. Maybe a second.
Well, this is going to sound a bit of a repetition of what I said earlier, so just bear with me. So we look at the fundamentals, right? So yes, the economic situation is right now testing in Pakistan, and it's because we import more than we can export. So the more dependence we have on local fuel to fulfill our energy needs, and if the dependence goes away from importing liquefied RLNG or imported coal or furnace oil or other forms of energy, less those imports are, the better our economy will fare. So it's good for the economy. It's good for our potential customers, particularly those who are catering to export markets, because they've got requirements now of environmental standards that their customers are demanding. So if we end up selling the molecule directly to them, it will not just be more cost effective for them, making them more competitive in export markets, but it will also address the environmental standards that their potential customers are demanding. We are a very good example of a company that has progressed over the last many decades. And this progress has happened with in partnership with a lot of foreign companies also. So, for example, Royal Vopak, which is a Dutch company, is a joint venture partner with us for the last 25 years. Royal Friesland Campina is another Dutch, very large dairy company, which is in partnership with our dairy business. Mitsubishi and several other names that a lot of the Chinese companies as well under the CTEC project that we delivered 3 years ago. So, and the data that I showed you of foreign investors in Pakistan, if you look at, if history is worth anything to look at, you will notice that in multiple sectors, companies from multiple parts of the world have actually done very well in Pakistan. So yes, it's a tough situation right now, just like a lot of other countries around the world. But we believe that this particular project ticks all the fundamental right boxes.
Oh, you don't need to move that. So
I have two related questions because right now we have a perfect panel of different type of company and different country, different stages of the development. You know, for this green energy, it's always positive, great things, but still the world is dominated by the non-green energy and the geopolitical conflicts also coming from it. So how could you try to scale up quickly and try to change this this current scenario and contribute to the peace of the world? And this is the first question. And second question, I always ask panel and also my students on the sustainability is, what is actually the biggest challenge right now in your company?
So great question. Let me give you the Pakistan example, right? So we're about 2.5, roughly a little over that percentage of the world population. We contribute about 0.5% to the carbon emissions around the globe. We're the 5th most vulnerable country to climate change, and the recent floods in Pakistan, which happened last year, have shown us that 33 million people were displaced, which is a very, very serious number. And the country will continue to remain vulnerable to such catastrophes moving forward also. And that has a huge impact on the economy and, of course, companies like ours. I think that what we need to come to terms with is that a lot of the developed countries today, or what you like to call the global north, they've grown at the expense of a lot of countries in the global south. And there needs to be some sense of equality, some sense of justice that needs to prevail. And that's where the world sort of needs to come together. However, 2022 was not the best sample as far as that is concerned, because we clearly see countries putting their energy security before what their responsibility to the world is as far as climate change is concerned, and as far as their responsibility to those countries who are now paying the price for their choices.
I would like to very quickly answer the first question, or give one possible answer to the first question. It's an enormous task, obviously, to save the world, right? So I think one important aspect of rolling out renewable energy very quickly is to make sure that we can use existing infrastructure. I think I mentioned it already in a couple of examples in my talk. If you have to establish a completely new kind of supply chain, a completely new infrastructure for transport, specifically on a global scale or chain, it's very, very difficult. So if you can have a situation where we can start with kind of blending in a little, let's say, sustainable fuel, or using infrastructure to have small changes initially without having like a lock-in effect, and then gradually increase, I guess that's very important. At the same time, we need the stable markets that are basically usually initiated by regulation, right? So like the lending quotas, like photovoltaic requirements if you build a new house, and so on. So you need to have the government to support the framework, and then a market that grows kind of in a steady, predictable way. I think that's very important. And maybe very quickly, for the second part, what's the biggest issue now for Engro, for example, is we have a lot of projects. So money is not often the issue these days. It's a luxury, but we actually struggle to find the right people to actually execute the research projects. So the labor market is actually very dried out at the moment.
So you mean academic engineers?
Yes, yeah, with people with a very specific skill set. And I guess it's simple.
Yeah, I think it's what's also happening at the moment. It's a good idea to you can generate money out of renewable energies. That is a good point. And also the next step would be that products who are not sustainable you have to put taxes on it or whatever. Because I think that is the only option to make the shift faster. Because what we're doing now is really so slow that it is if we tell the truth, it's not fast enough. So we have to change this. We have to make more to make the renewable energies profitable. Like in our example, what our partners of the waste or plastic to energy concept, they calculate with a price of 5 cents. The regular price in the public grid in Vietnam is 7 cents. So for us, it makes totally sense. Of course, we have this huge investment into the energy concept, into the energy part, into the production. But in the long term, if you're running and you're seeing a stainless steel mill, it's running 50 years. It makes a lot of sense to put the investment into green energy. And at the same time, that is a bit of future thinking. But what we really think is that products who are not green, who are not sustainable, will be taxed, and there are things that make the green products more financial.
In your view, which region move faster? Which region moves slow? Asia faster or Europe faster?
I just can compare because I worked some years in China and now I work in Vietnam. So I'm not a real expert, but what I see is that what I said before was when we talk to the Vietnamese government, the focus on green projects is so much higher than in Europe. And yeah, of course, it makes total sense. Something that was running so well for years, sometimes it's much more difficult to change it. We've seen the same with Tesla. Why is not the old companies, Mercedes, BMW, they all knew before how to make electric vehicles. But why should they change? It is running so well. They can just, in Germany we say, man make die Kuh, solange wie es geht. I have no idea what it is in English. But this is how it is. You do it. Cash cow. I think that is the reason why when I realized that just for example, Vietnam is moving much faster. But also I've seen it in China. I was in Shanghai. And then, I don't know, I was there 5 years later, and so much changed. The markets have been out of the city. It was really becoming a clean city, a clean green city very fast. And I think that is something where I see more opportunities. I have no idea about Pakistan and India, but I think they will do the shift much faster.
I can just add to that I really think, here in Europe, we have an amazing life. Everything works and we don't see the impact of the climate change as you see it in Pakistan. We can see it because we can't go skiing, we don't have snow, but that's not an issue. That's a tiny thing. And I think you need to really feel it, that you do something. And then it is the kind of agreements on a very high level, the regulatory framework, as has been said. As a company, we are struggling as well to move fast with infrastructure projects and to find the right people. And I think that's really, we can't build up enough skills fast enough because we haven't been fast in the past.
Yeah, maybe one more adding. I think as other colleagues, to implement the technology would go pretty fast if it really was wanted, or it really was supported in a way. So to set up plans, which is a study for the German government, they said when the in February when we had some happenings in the east of Europe. And so we said, what could we do if the Russian gas would be cut off fully at the moment? And realized that we made a study and simulation from our side that we could do with about 300 plants of 100 megawatt size. We could replace, and they could be built in. If there's a concern, we took the companies like Holcim that will work in 3 to 5 years. You rebuild these simultaneously, and additionally, they would pay back within about 4 years just from the savings from the pre-war gas price to the renewable gas price. Because on biogas, let's say our technology, the input material is the main driver of the cost for the energy production. So if you buy a food crop, or if you have to do that, you're at prices of 60, 80, 100 euros at the moment. Corn silage ranks at 95 euros per ton, just as a comparison. Any waste in the simple solid waste, you may even get tipping fees if you get it. You can waive that. The community can use that better. So you get it for free. If the input is free, on 100,000 tons, you just save about 10 million of input cost, and on scale-up basis even more. So the payback of such waste plants is much faster. They can be within 3 to 5 years. It just needs action. All the regulatory stuff. There are millions of the permits even go fairly fast, 6, 7 months we can do in Germany, for instance, which is pretty regulated. But then to get the property. Now we're just fighting for a big plant which has a property on sale for 20 years not sold from the old Treuhandanstalt. It took over the properties of the old GDR, which were not publicized now, old industrial areas which you can use. Now 20, 30 years not sold sitting there. When you ask for that, yeah, we might have different application for it. We're waiting for maybe a jet fuel aviation, Microsoft, whatever high-tech company who go there. So we better keep it. The whole area is empty, nobody's there. And when an organization will sell all the properties out, it will be dissolved. They will lose their jobs. So there's keeping their jobs and not acting. So I think it needs action on different levels of the administration. Then it could go fast. It's not a technical issue.
Thank you very much. I think with this, we come to the end of this, for me personally, very interesting panel today. I'd like to thank all the panelists. Obviously, we have great panelists from big companies and also from startups, more from the governance side as well. And based on my own experience as well, I was CEO of Nestlé China, leading 50,000 people, and now working with a lot of startups. The big challenge will always be people. Getting the right people, getting the right training, getting the right capabilities done within the organization. And from green tech to sweet tech, I like to give a little green energy or sweet energy gift to all of you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Please, a big applause here to the panel.